All right, there, folks. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Live from Drew's house, another edition. Hope everybody's doing okay. It is officially, well, it's fall. It's feeling like fall. And, well, I'm still golfing, but it's best time of year to golf, by the way. I like the fall golf, but it is definitely feeling like the summer days are long gone now. The chill is in the air. It's a cool time. Cool time. I love this time of year. It's like I always say, New England. Listen, I love the summer as much as anybody. Enjoy it very much. But I love the season change. Even I can do a little bit of winter. I know people cringe at that sometimes. How do you like the winter? I just like all the seasons changing in New England. And this may be my favorite one, the fall. I like the whole idea of like being able to put on a fire. I like the idea of still being able to do a lot of the outside stuff like the golf. And, I like the apple picking. It's a fun little thing. Yeah, the pumpkins are out. Halloween fast approaching. Actually, I plan on doing that as one of these shows here coming up. I would like to talk about Salem a little bit because it's the center of the Halloween universe, and that's going to be a lot different this year with the pandemic. So stay tuned for that. Maybe next week we'll do a show about that as we get ready. The haunted happenings will be a lot different in Salem. But anyways, hope you're all doing okay out there. Not pumpkin here, but just regular coffee. Did a good show on tap for you today. I hope you enjoyed last week. It was great. We did some documentary film talk last week. We did some music talk with the Club Passim last week. Fun week last week, so that was good. And we're off and running here again today. We're going to talk a little bit. I don't know if you saw the virtual Emmys. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But the Emmy Awards happened. They went down, and like everything else in 2020, completely different. The award show was virtual. Jimmy Kimmel hosted. But it was a very different feel. Obviously, a lot of references to all the stuff going on in the world. But it happens to be a lot of local flavor for the Emmys this year. I don't know how often, there's always going to be some local flavor, right? Boston's very big when it comes to the arts and all that. But at Berklee, they had quite a representation this year. Big success on the Emmy front as far as alumni. And right now, I am actually going to bring in the president of Berklee. How cool is that? Roger Brown. Roger Brown is going to join us. And, we'll talk definitely about the Emmys here. But what a great time to talk to a college president. There is a lot going on in a pandemic and a lot on the plate of a college president. So let's bring in Roger Brown and talk about some of that. And let's do that right now. Berklee College's Roger Brown. All right. So President Roger Brown, first time on the show. It is an honor. How are you, sir? Good to meet you.
Good. How are you?
Good. We make the coffee mug part of the shtick on the show, and you just showed me one off the air. So what do you got there? What are you working with?
The official Berklee coffee mug.
Very good.
Made in Korea.
Okay. Very good. I'm a simple one here. I don't know where this one's made, but very good. Happy fall to you. Good time of year. I want to talk about the Emmys with you in a second because, man, you guys were well represented like crazy. But I would be remiss if I don't ask you, as a president of a big time college around here, what is it like being a president in 2020? Not exactly an easy gig.
No, it's very complicated, and you feel a lot of responsibility to make the right decisions despite massively uncertain information. So Berklee made the decision to be remote this fall. So we don't have students on campus, with the exception of a small graduate program in Valencia, Spain. And we did that because we just felt like the music instruction is even more complicated than traditional college instruction, where you can socially distance in a classroom. We're so far feeling, things have gone really well. The students, for the most part, are, I think, engaged in learning in their remote classes, but we all wish we could be back on campus making music together, recording music. So the hope will be that January we can do that.
It's such a unique college to be talking about because, Berklee College of Music. This is the natural thing about music is you get in a room and you play and you make this great thing together. What is it? It must be kind of strange to be telling people, you know what, you're going to come to our school, but you're going to be doing it virtually. There has to be a whole different kind of conversation.
Well, it is, but I also think that modern music is often recorded by multiple people in different locations who don't see each other, recorded asynchronously, mixed and mastered at other locations. So in a way, even though we don't want to do it this way, in a way this simulates the world that a lot of our students are entering of how contemporary music is made. And because of the amazing technologies, we've pulled together some terrific pre-recorded concerts of musicians all over the world adding their parts to the mix. So you may have seen some of them. One of our students did this, a version of What the World Needs Now that blew up and got millions of views. And our whole commencement concert was done virtually, and it was spectacular.
So it's given you some avenues to be even more creative in some ways.
Well, the thing that I would say to young musicians and dancers and actors is, if you'd wanted an easy path, you wouldn't have chose this one. So what are we going to do with the lemons that the world has given us and try to make the best of it and learn skills that will help us in this virtual world that can also serve you even if the world gets back to normal pretty quickly?
Somebody who's such a big part of the music community like yourself, you must be kind of proud. I have all sorts of musicians on this show, people that will come in and play, whether it be local musicians or some of the ones that have made it a little bit bigger. Whatever the role is for them, I have noticed that the artists have really done a great job getting people through this pandemic and through the quarantine a little bit. They've kind of been, in a lot of ways, what people have turned to in quarantine. You know what? Music makes me satisfied. It gives me that feeling of home and pleasure. And a lot of people are turning to the artists. And the artists, I think, have really delivered, whether it be virtually or whatever, on the other side of that.
No kidding. I think art both reflects the times, but in many ways drives them. I think with the Black Lives Matter movement and all these efforts to really confront racism and discrimination, oppression in our society, the musicians are the ones out front leading that effort. And then some of it's lighthearted that helps us just get through the day. So yeah, I think the musicians have been front and center. The streaming services have seen massive increase in the amount of music that's being streamed. And then we're going to talk in a second about the Emmys. All media now has really is saturated with music. So the opportunities for musicians are not only to release music in a traditional form, but to be scoring video games or TV shows or TV series or obviously feature films. And I think with the advent of online education, eventually we're going to have scores accompanying online courses that people take.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. My last question before we talk about the Emmys would be, you mentioned, turning this lemons into lemonade. Do you get any sense of fear from these, a lot of times these young students that are coming up, these young talented musicians, that this is the industry that they're going to be in, and there are no real venues to have shows right now? I mean, there are some, but in comparison, nothing like it was last year, and the future is a little bit in doubt. Do you feel any fear from these kids or what?
I was just on a remote call with one of our upper semester classes, kids from all over the world, and there was a young man in Medellin saying he's got a gig tonight, that they're getting back to gigging. I had a student in Brazil who was gigging. So yes, I mean, the short answer is gigging is not only how a lot of musicians make money, it's what feeds their souls. And it's really hard when you can't play gigs. Again, I'm optimistic that we will get through coronavirus and we'll be back to live performance soon. So I try to reassure students, when you're 18 years old, a year of your life is more than 5% of your life. For me, it's a much smaller percentage of my life, and I've seen us go through various crises and problems. So we're going to get through this and get back to a more normal time. But I think the real question is, okay, you can't do that. What can you do? You can write, you can learn new skills, you can practice, you can reflect. A lot of great art has come when people have been forced to reflect and they're not on the road traveling 250 days a year. Several of the students said that. They said, I feel like in some ways I'm learning more and I'm healthier because I'm not running around so much. I'm calmer, I'm more settled. So, I'm sure it's different for everyone, but, we don't really have a choice. So we sort of have to make the best of it.
Fascinating. All right. Well, Roger Brown joining us again, the president of the Berklee College of Music. Can we talk about the Emmys? My goodness, what a great week it's been for your family, whether you're talking alumni or give us the rundown. There was some serious hardware that was represented from your family.
Well, I think the Emmys are an interesting evolution for us because we're famous for winning Grammys.
Yes.
We've won 297 Grammys and 99 Latin Grammys. And we've got people like Quincy Jones and Juan Luis Guerra who are like masters of winning these things. But the Emmys, I think, do reflect the fact that with the dramatic, infusion of especially these high quality TV series that are the quality of feature-length films, and in many ways 10 or 15 times as long, there's a lot of music to be made for these shows. So, Westworld is scored by a Berklee alum, Game of Thrones is scored by a Berklee alum. A lot of these things are creating opportunities and jobs for our alumni. So we're proud, and we got three Emmys and 3 daytime Emmys this year out of a bunch of nominations. One that I think is particularly noteworthy is a guy named Pablo Manguilla. He won for the music for the Oscars. He does the Oscars, he does the Grammys, he does the Super Bowl. He's the sound engineer for the Super Bowl. Wow. So imagine putting together a show of that magnitude with about 5 minutes of transition time. Imagine all the things that could go wrong. I mean, like when Lady Gaga sets up for a concert, they have about 8 hours to get it set up and do sound checks and make sure everything's working. For the Super Bowl, man, it's another game altogether. So Pablo is like this stunningly talented guy. And what many people don't know is he's from Mexico, and he first came to Boston to study at MIT. He was an electrical engineering student at MIT, graduated, went to work for IBM for a couple of years, and said, this is not what I really want to do. Oh, wow. So he came back to Berklee, already having an MIT undergraduate degree, majored in music production and engineering, and went out and has had this extraordinary career. And now he is the program director for a master's program we run in Valencia, Spain, called Music Production Technology Innovation. And he's a really terrific guy, super, super talented. And whenever there's a hard job to be done, people call Pablo.
Well, that's a great way to be described. Fantastic. So he's pretty busy then, is what you're saying, it seems like.
He's busy. I mean, he could probably be busy full-time just doing the gigs he already has, but he's also running this program for us on top of that. And then, of course, Jasmine Cephas Jones, who was probably made most famous by her role in Hamilton, as one of the Schuyler sisters, was nominated and won for this hashtag Free Roshan show. It's also cool because she and her father both won Emmys this year, and I guess that may be the first time that's ever happened for a father-daughter combination to win. I also saw her in this TV series, Mrs. Fletcher, that was written by Tom Perrotta, a local author. She was great in that as well. So she's really coming into her own, both in television, film, and theater. And then Stephanie McNally won for Mandalorian. And so it felt like a good haul for us. Three wins, and we had 2 daytime wins as well. So, you don't want to make too much of it because there are a lot of amazing people who don't ever win one of these awards. And some of the best music I've ever listened to, no one would ever nominate for a Grammy, or certainly wouldn't win one. On the other hand, what I always say to our own community is if you're at MIT or Harvard and somebody wins a Nobel Prize, take some pride in that. Yeah. Not everybody wins one. It's a subjective determination. It's not the decisive factor in someone's career, but it says a lot about our school when one of our colleagues is successful and wins one of these. So we like to celebrate it.
As president, do you? I imagine it's you mentioned, what was it, 297 Grammys? Is that
Yep.
the number?
Yep.
Not that you're counting, but yes, it's 200.
We are counting.
We are
We're
counting.
eager to get to 300. We think this will be the year.
300. Very good. That'll be a fun milestone. But I can imagine when you venture off and you, not venture off, but get this kind of respect from another award show. And I know they are what they are, but there must be a part of you that it still must be cool. Does it get the adrenaline going to get honored from an award show like the Emmys and say, all right, kind of a whole new thing we've entered into here?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you don't want to make it all about winning. It's art and music and dance and theater. It's not necessarily about winning, but when you do get recognition, you want to enjoy it. You don't want to go apocalyptic if you don't get it, because again, it's not the measuring stick that really matters in the long run. But yeah, we're proud of it, and we're proud for these folks, and it helps their careers. And another thing that's cool about Berklee is that when one alum has success, it often breeds success for other people. Someone like Pablo, he's in a position to hire a lot of alumni. Esperanza Spalding, who's won, I think, 3 Grammys now.
Yeah.
Her bands are always filled with Berklee people. Terry Lynn Carrington's bands are always filled with Berklee people. And a lot of our older alums are now in a position to really mentor and support the younger folks. So again, that you pass the success forward.
I remember interviewing Terry Lynn Carrington one year after she won a Grammy, and I have one story I'll never forget. Is so how was she told me that she had got her award early, and then she was ready to sit in for the rest of the show, and she goes, "You have no idea how long those shows are. I had to go home. I missed all the interesting parts at the end." And I always thought that was one of those stories that stuck with me. But you mentioned the Super Bowl too. I once talked with one of the stage engineers or whatever, and one of the guys that is running on the field and putting that thing together, and he was telling me the rush of that. But I remember him saying to me, and his name is escaping me. It was an older interview I did, but one of the things that I always remember was he said, the real pressure is with the artists and the people that control the sound. We're out there running, and it's like that kind of adrenaline. It's almost like if you take time to really think and get nervous, you're going to mess up. But those people, that's the one. If there's a mistake, the whole world notices. So talk about the pressure of that Super Bowl show.
I can only imagine. And I do know the reason I have some insight into it is I often see posts and things from Pablo once it's over, and there's just an absolute sense of like relief and excitement when they get it right.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. That's a big celebration in its own right. Last question here on the award shows. It is different with all virtual. Did anybody make mention of that with the whole? This was not. You still had the big host. Jimmy Kimmel, I think, was hosting, and they were all. It's kind of the whole glitz and glamour was there, but like everything else, it was unique to have this show be done virtually.
I guess what we've realized is just how much you can get done virtually.
Yeah.
This is not a bad way to interact.
No.
And, so, I think there are some people who say, the world will never be the same now that we know how to do this. The world is kind of hard to change. So once coronavirus is behind us or we have a good vaccine, I think we'll probably get back to doing things the way we used to, more or less. But I think it's good to have this tool in your toolkit and say, look, if I can't get to LA and I want to talk to somebody, it takes about 30 seconds to set up a Zoom call, and it's not a bad way to interact. So, yeah, I think, certainly the comedy shows feel very different without live audiences. One thing you realize is I went to the Colbert show because a couple of people in the band are Berklee alums, so they got me some tickets. And, they spend a lot of time before the show warming up the audience to get you charged up to deliver energy to the host. And at the time, it seemed kind of, maybe they're doing this for us so that we have a good experience. And now that I see what it's like without the audience, you realize, no, they're doing this because it makes the show work better when the audience is really excited and making noise and showing appreciation.
Absolutely. And, I've had some musical artists up on here and they said, the streaming thing, it's a great way to get music out. But yeah, I remember one artist was on here and said, I'm living with my girlfriend and her daughter, and they felt the need to applaud when I would play. And I said, I got to tell you, it sounds way too much like a really sad bar. And I know that feeling. So we're going to need to stop that. Yeah. But I always thought that was interesting. Again, we're joined by Roger Brown, the president of the Berklee College for Music. Mr. President, we usually end these shows here with some rapid fire. Can you do that? First thing that comes to mind?
Sure.
And actually, this is going to be a little bit of a longer start to rapid fire because I do want to, you said a couple of insightful things here about the pandemic that I like. I like your whole mindset on it. The whole making lemons out of lemonade, lemonade out of lemons idea. And I do wonder, have you ever lived through anything that reminds you of this? Anything, is there anything close to this?
Well, I was, my wife and I, we were unmarried at the time, were running managing a refugee camp in the eastern part of Sudan during the Ethiopian famine. And we had an outbreak of cholera. We had no medical staff. We had no real supplies. We were not trained. We weren't doctors or nurses. We were there doing more food distribution and other stuff. So honestly, compared to trying to run a cholera epidemic in the middle of the Sudanese desert with no supplies, coronavirus feels pretty benign.
Oh my
goodness. So yeah, I've lived and worked in refugee camps in Cambodia and Thailand, and I was in Sudan for 2 years. So I've experienced some parts of the world that have endured things that make this, again, no offense to anyone who's suffered from coronavirus or who's lost a loved one. That's serious business. But, I just looked this up. I think there were 65 million people who died in World War II, not just from the war itself, but from concentration camps and starvation. And, so we've had close to 2 million die from coronavirus. So the world has been through much tougher things. The Spanish flu was dramatically worse in terms of death toll for a much smaller world population. So, again, that doesn't make it any easier, but in the grand scheme of things, we as a species have survived far worse, and we're going to get through this.
What do you think, or maybe the moment in your life, what pushed you in that direction to say that I'm going to go work with these refugee camps? How'd you get there?
I've got a dog I've got to. Yeah.
Oh, sure. I trust me. Absolutely. People who watch this show, President Brown, know that I am interrupted by the dogs. Usually I'll give a warning at the beginning. If the dogs start barking, just give them a moment because they try to make a appearance.
Probably should have put her some other place. So sorry, what was the question again?
Well, what kind of dog do you have, first of all? I'm curious.
That is a miniature Australian Shepherd named Coco.
Okay. My hound dog is probably louder. If I had, well, I don't know. But my question was, what pushed you into that line of work, the working at refugee camps? Do you remember a moment in your life where you say, that's my calling? Or?
Well, I was always drawn to travel and adventure and getting to know other cultures. And honestly, my first overseas experience was being a math teacher in rural Kenya back in the late 70s, right after I finished college. And, you never know quite how the mind of a 21-year-old works. But I think what I was thinking was, I grew up in the South during the middle of the Civil Rights Movement. It'd be interesting, exciting, and probably I'd learn a lot if I went to a place like Kenya and lived in a small village and tried to do something of use, like teaching and coaching. And so that led me to take that first step. And once I took that first step, I really loved it. And these other things just followed.
Fascinating. I'm sure you learned tools that you used throughout your entire career, your whole life. I'm sure that's an understatement, right?
The great thing about being at Berklee now is that we have a lot of students from Kenya.
Yeah.
We have students, we had a Sudanese student a few years ago. We got a student whose father was Sudanese, mother was Greek. She actually is blown up in Greece. She's become quite famous. We get students from Southeast Asia, and I've lived in all these places. So it allows me to connect with students, I think, maybe differently than if I had never had those experiences. And it made me vow, people were so good to me when I was living there. It made me vow that I want to be supportive of people from other countries when they come to our country, because it can be a little overwhelming sometimes to be out of your culture, far away from your family. You don't know how the rules all work. You don't know if you're doing or saying the right thing. So I made a vow to try to be that person for some young person from another country when I had the chance.
Great story. Well, I'm glad we did that. Roger Brown, again, president of Berklee College of Music. All right, rapid fire. Here we go. This is the one I usually start with. I realize it's probably a loaded question for somebody in your position, but your favorite musician?
Well, what came to mind immediately was Stevie Wonder.
Okay.
If you asked me 5 minutes later, it'd be someone else. The person I probably listen to most is Pat Metheny.
Okay.
But I think Stevie Wonder, in terms of his impact and the breadth of his writing and just but anyway, as I say, it could be a lot of people, but those two are at the top of the list.
All right. Favorite movie?
I'm not saying this because of you, but I did love Mulholland Drive. That might have planted the seed.
Maybe a little bit. Different spelling, though. They did. That's all. All right, good answer. I like that. First answer that has been on this show, actually. First time somebody has said that, which I'm kind of surprised by. Favorite quarantine activity?
Cooking.
Cooking. Something you were into before, or you decided to pick it up?
I'm a reasonably good cook. I was in the Boy Scouts, and I learned early on that if you cooked, you didn't have to clean up.
Oh.
So I became the kind of go-to cook for the Boy Scouts. So I've always liked to cook, but during coronavirus, my wife and I alternate. So I cook one night, she cleans that night. The next night, we reverse it. So I've made some cool stuff. I just made a baba ganoush that I'd never done before. I made a great Mexican thing last night with some homemade guacamole and refried beans and corn and chicken. So it's kind of fun to just pick something that you're interested in and see if you can make it.
All right, there you go. That's now we're all hungry here as we approach dinner time. That's very good. Favorite television show? Could be old or new.
I loved Bloodline.
I did too. I thought
Bloodline was, again, I'm from the South. It had this kind of eerie quality about it of, I don't know, good and evil. And I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I've always liked the actor's name there is escaping me, but the guy he
Friday Night Lights guy.
Yes, because I loved that show.
I don't remember his. I can't watch handheld camera. So that show had a lot of handheld camera, and I tried to watch it. All my friends love it, and I grew up playing football in the South, so I know Friday Night Lights, but I couldn't watch that show.
Interesting. All right, where'd you grow up?
Gainesville, Georgia.
All right. Does this make you a UGA fan?
No.
No.
I grew up as a Georgia Tech fan, so Georgia was actually the enemy, the sworn enemy.
College football, kind of a weird season to be a fan, to be a player. It's kind of a weird time to be involved in sports.
Yeah.
It seems like they're getting through a little bit, though. All right, final couple rapid fire. Favorite class in school back in the day?
I took an ethics class in college with a professor who made us write 400-word essays on very expansive topics. And you got an automatic F if you wrote a single passive sentence in the entire essay. And, and I didn't even know what a passive sentence was. And I got a few Fs, and I learned pretty quickly so that was a great course. And I was a physics major in college, and I loved quantum mechanics. It was considered like this really hard course, but I really clicked with the professor, and I don't know, for some reason I loved that course, and it all made sense to me. So.
And I wonder what is the hardest, and I know you don't make these decisions about virtual first in class. Those decisions aren't easy, I know, on any college president. I wonder, what is the toughest part about being a college president in 2020? Is it, what would you say?
I would say that we're living in a time of severe, deep distrust of institutions and authority. So I think a lot of college students assume the worst about their institutions or about the leaders of those institutions, and are maybe deservedly hypercritical. And so it's hard sometimes when I feel like I spend all my waking hours trying to make Berklee a better place for students. And sometimes you feel like they are so skeptical and so critical that, there are a lot of things that need to be better in the world. And I'm the first to acknowledge that, but I actually think it's a pretty amazing place. And I think faculty are super committed and the other students are amazingly talented. So that's kind of hard. And I've been at Berklee 16 years now in this role. It was not that way before, but I think the combination of presidential leadership in the country that is so polarizing, the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, there's a sense on the part of young people that somehow my generation is totally screwed it up and doesn't care. So that makes it hard. It can be discouraging.
So you're saying you got another 16 years in you here?
Nope.
Final question. We get a lot of high schoolers on here, a lot of people that are big into the arts, a lot of people that are big in however they're making news in school. But they will be entering the real world here at some point, and it might be a little bit different, but I wonder what was the best professional advice that you ever received personally?
I heard a clinician who was teaching about hand percussion say, better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And I think what he meant was, sometimes when you're a student, you say, when am I ever going to use this? Why do I need to know this? Is this practical? Often that's just an excuse for not doing the work. And I think one of the points he was making is, if you're a vocalist or a guitar player or a drummer, and you can also play percussion, you're more likely to get the gig. Because if they can take you on the road and have you cover two parts instead of one, you're more likely to get that job. And those skills help you be a better singer, a better guitar player, a better drummer. So, but I think that it applies way beyond music. Just preparation. Preparation is key. Because if you're going to be an improviser, and in life you're going to need to be, the more things you know how to do, the more confident you are, the better you're going to be able to respond to whatever the world throws at you.
Very cool. Great answer. Well, Roger Brown, the president at the Berklee College of Music. Sir, I'm glad we did this. I appreciated it enjoyed it very much. I hope you did too.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see you soon, and be safe. All right.
Okay, good. Thanks so much.
All right. How cool was that? Roger Brown, president of Berklee College of Music. I had never met him before. It was just a suggestion that he would be a good interview, especially with the Emmy Awards and all that stuff. And man, that was a really interesting guy. That was great. So great way to spend an afternoon there. Roger Brown, president of Berklee. What a unique job in 2020. Thanks for joining us, folks. My name is Drew Moholland, live from Drew's house, another edition. We'll see you next time. All right. Bye-bye now.